a dialysis clinic plagued by a string of mysterious deaths.
They both went into cardiac arrest within 30 minutes of each other.
Employees at the facility were on edge, and patients were acutely aware that something was amiss, something was wrong.
Even under the changes in policy and procedure, the deaths still continued.
An investigation reveals evidence of an intentional crime.
There was a horrible smell that burned my eyes and my nostrils like bleach.
The police department took thousands of syringes.
The first thing we did was we identified that, yes, bleach was present in those syringes.
What it probably felt like to my mom was being burned from the inside out.
And when the killer is unmasked, it sends shockwaves through this small Texas town.
What was going on there? What was happening to these patients?
Why in little old Lufkin would there be a serial killer?
I don't know what's going on here, and it's just scary.
How could another human being do that to anybody?
For millions of Americans, dialysis treatments are a crucial part of their survival.
My mother had issues off and on the whole time we were growing up with diabetes, blood pressure, that type of things, which led to her having to go to dialysis. When she'd go to the doctor, I always went with her. I always had that drawn to take care of another human being, and I've been a nurse for over 33 years. Dialysis treatment is that when you have some kidney malfunction or your kidneys aren't functioning as well as they should, and they actually pull your blood out and they clean it and then they put it back in. And it's a 3 to 4 hour process.
For 68-year-old Fran Metcalf, trips to the DaVita Clinic in Lufkin, Texas have become a regular part of her life.
The DaVita Dialysis Center in Lufkin is one of 2 large dialysis centers that take care of patients who've got kidney failure.
We were taking her to dialysis 3 days a week. I could go up and visit with her on Saturdays when I was off.
When Fran would come to dialysis, some real bonds were being made there, and she would tell us about the friendships that she had. I think it was a real personal experience because all of the people there receiving dialysis were really struggling to, maintain a good quality of life with all the obstacles that were in their way.
To both patients and staff, it's a routine process with relatively few complications. However, on April 1st, 2008, that isn't the case.
Fran was having a fairly normal treatment day that day, blood pressure normal, etc. And then all of a sudden she bottomed out.
Her blood pressure dropped drastically, and the alarms and the alerts were going off.
They call an ambulance. Luckily in Lufkin, it's small enough that the ambulance is less than 2 minutes away. Then they moved to the hospital.
My dad had the nurse call me from the hospital. They just told me that she'd had cardiac arrest and there were some issues and I need to get there fast. When I get there, she had already passed. From my understanding, it is very rare for someone on dialysis to go into cardiac arrest. It was a big shock. I just really want to know why this happened.
Fran Metcalf was born on August 3, 1939 in Arkansas, and very quickly she faced serious health issues.
My mother had polio at a very young age, so she struggled with mobility and had to have braces on her legs.
As she got older and, her disability was affecting her a lot in school. Her education was not, great. She spent a lot of time in the hospital.
But there was a silver lining to Fran's illness. As a young woman, her treatments caused her to cross paths with her future husband.
Fran's aunt lived in Port Arthur, Texas, so her mom would bring her down to Port Arthur. There were bigger hospitals on the Gulf Coast.
She met my dad that was in the Coast Guard. They just hit it off. He was good looking, and Mother fell head over heels in love. Mom and Dad had dated probably about 6 months before they got married because he was headed back out and he wanted her to go with him. So it was a short engagement.
Fran and Walter Metcalf had 4 children together, and their daughter Wanda went on to become a nurse.
I think that Mother would have loved to have been a nurse, but she had some vision problems, again, the mobility problems. She was there for my graduation. She was there, to bring me a cup of coffee at night when I was studying, just to make sure that I had everything that I needed.
As Fran entered middle age, she delighted in becoming a grandmother to 8 grandchildren.
She was wonderful at, planning parties and wanting to be at every event that the kids had. My youngest daughter's basketball games, the boys played baseball.
She was a very loving person. She just loved to be surrounded by people, listen to stories.
Unfortunately, Fran's health struggles continued. She was diagnosed with diabetes, and when her kidneys worsened, she was prescribed dialysis treatments. Fran became a regular patient at the Lufkin Clinic, where she found another kind of family.
She started dialysis in 2007. She made many friends. You're sitting beside someone for 3 to 4 hours. Even the nursing staff, the whole thing, it becomes a family.
But after a routine treatment, an unexplained heart attack has claimed Fran's life, and her loved ones are struggling to understand how it could have happened.
You don't expect typically for a dialysis patient to have a heart attack or get worse during dialysis, because the point of the dialysis is to be taking impurities out of the patient's blood.
I think that one of the hardest things for me was not to be able to have a goodbye moment with my mom. And so I reached down and I kissed her on the cheek. When I did, there was a horrible smell that burned my eyes and my nostrils. She smelled like bleach.
Fran's family has no way of knowing if the smell had anything to do with her death, but they are determined to find out what went wrong. Unfortunately, Fran wasn't the only death at the clinic that day.
Claire Strange was a grandmother. She was born during the Great Depression, and she worked on the family farm. She went to church. She was part of a tight-knit community, and she'd been on dialysis for about 8 to 9 years prior to her death.
At the time of April 1st, when she went to visit the dialysis facility, she was screened as normal, and again, an uneventful dialysis process would have been expected. She went into cardiac arrest and also died.
It's like, oh, Mother wasn't the only one. Claire Strange was a name that Mom had mentioned. That was a lady that was real sweet to her.
They both went into cardiac arrest within 30 minutes of each other.
To have 2 patients die on the same day is just, the odds of that are astronomically low.
Our minds are really beginning to start to inquire what was going on there, what was happening to these patients.
Coming up, the inexplicable deaths continue.
She had no immediate health problems, and she died almost immediately.
And patients witness a chilling scene.
Someone walked over to a bleach solution bucket on the floor and draw up that solution into a syringe.
After the unexplained deaths of Fran Metcalf and Clara Strange, family members are pressuring the DeVita Clinic for answers.
It was treated as a medical anomaly. Statistics are accurate to a point, but there's always the outliers.
DeVita was very concerned, and they began a very introspective process of trying to understand what was going on.
They initiated a procedure where they began saving items from cardiac incidents and reviewing the medical charts and seeing if there was any medical explanation for what caused those deaths.
During the following week, 5 more patients suffer cardiac arrests. Thankfully, they survive, but administrators are alarmed, to say the least.
DeVita sent high-level nurses to the facility to try observing if there was some breakdown in procedure or some kind of process that wasn't being done right. And they weren't able to find anything that could explain these untoward results.
After analyzing their procedures, the clinic could not identify an obvious cause for these cardiac events.
There's no indication to that point that there's any nefarious activity going on. These are health-compromised individuals to begin with, otherwise they wouldn't be on dialysis.
The clinic staff stays alert while they remain open to continue serving the community of Lufkin. But 15 days later, 2 more patients suffer cardiac arrests. One of them is 58-year-old Garland Kelly Jr.
My dad, Garland Kelly Jr., grew up in Lufkin, Texas, and he was on the championship team with the Dunbar High School football team.
Garland's wife, LaFrancis, was his high school sweetheart. Together, they built a home and raised 3 daughters.
He was an insurance salesman, so that was his primary occupation. And then he always officiated football games on the side, so that was like his little side hustle thing. He didn't meet a stranger, ever. Would talk to anybody and would just embrace everybody. It was probably when I was in high school, which would be like in the 80s, when he learned that he had diabetes. You know, obviously he wasn't happy about having to go on dialysis, but if that's what it took for him to live, then he, had to do it. He loved my mom. Their 40th anniversary would have been in March.
Now, just a month after his anniversary celebration, Garland has become the latest DeVita patient to suffer a cardiac arrest.
They obviously began resuscitation attempts. They were successful. His heart began to beat on his own, and he was transported to the hospital. He was placed on a ventilator.
We all got to the hospital around the same time, and it was just family there waiting to see what the outcome was. He was in a coma.
Unlike the other heart attacks, a clinic technician noticed something strange just before Garland coded.
She witnessed what she described, it looked like a black ball of hair that went through his line and into his system.
Whenever that clot appeared, he went into cardiac arrest. It was an anomaly for treatment. You often see clots when people are being dialyzed. This one had a very unique appearance.
With 2 deaths on their hands, the dialysis clinic initiates a new safety precaution.
DeVita instituted a policy of not reusing dialyzers. However, even under the monitors and the changes in policy and procedure, the deaths still continued.
Employees at the facility were on edge, and I think patients were acutely aware that something was amiss, something was wrong, but they needed this treatment in order to survive. It was so inconvenient for them to travel out to Livingston or out to Henderson, about an 1.5-hour drive from Lufkin, in order to receive these treatments 3 times a week.
6 days after Garland Kelly, 2 more patients suffer cardiac events, including 63-year-old Cora Bryant.
Cora Bryant was a mother of 5 children. She had 13 grandchildren, and she did not let the fact that she was on dialysis control her life.
What Miss Bryant experienced that day was way outside the norm. Before Miss Bryant coded, she asked the nurse, "What did you give me?" That was overheard by multiple people around her.
Of course, no one knew what she meant by that then.
Like Garland Kelly Jr., the heart attack has left her in a coma. Before the end of the week, it happens 6 more times, including to Opal May Few.
Opal Few was a lady that was 90 or 91 years old, and she was very active, no expectation of any immediate health problems. And Ms. Few died almost immediately there in the facility.
My mother, Opal Mayfew, was raised in Pollock, which is just about 8 or 10 miles outside of Lufkin. My mom always said is that when she had her children, there was never any other goal in life other than to provide for them and to raise them to be the best people that they could be.
Opal had kidney issues later in life, and like the first victim, Fran Metcalf, she enjoyed the community of patients at the clinic. Now, she appears to have suffered the same fate.
I got the phone call that you don't ever want to get. And I didn't believe it. I was like, no, not my mom. There's no way that she could have died. I was overwhelmed by grief. There had been no news, no articles of the other people who had passed away, so I was unaware. There's been several deaths when she was there.
DaVita began to look at everything, the patient's medical history, the employees working, the practices, the water filtration, the medicine. They looked at everything.
Clinic administrators are at a loss to explain what's happening, so they finally decide to call in experts.
Toward the end of April, the DaVita company contacted the Centers for Disease Control and says, hey, can you help us? Can you send somebody? We've got patients getting sick and we can't tell why. We've checked everything we know. Help us, please.
For several weeks, the DaVita Clinic in Lufkin, Texas has remained open as they internally investigate over 24 emergency calls and 3 mysterious deaths. As no progress has been made, a doctor from the Center for Disease Control arrives to review the cases. He can't find any contaminants or natural causes, which leads him to one inevitable conclusion.
Through analysis of the statistical likelihood was that one of the employees might be killing people.
In most cases of healthcare killers, there are multiple victims. The most common way, over 50% of patients are killed through some type of injectable.
CDC suggested a serial killer, but there again, you always have to follow the evidence. At that point, you have somebody's observation. There was no playbook, as it were, on how to deal with this.
While the CDC suspects patients are being harmed intentionally, the clinic remains functioning with managers on high alert while they investigate further. Within days of the CDC doctor's assessment, 2 patients report suspicious activity.
On April the 28th, Lurleen Hamilton, Linda Hall were being dialyzed. They were already nervous, alert, and scared because of the number of deaths, so they were paying attention.
They started their treatment around 5:30 that morning. And Miss Hall noticed a nurse was acting fidgety, a bit out of sorts. That's what first drew her attention. She watched as the nurse walked over to a bleach solution bucket on the floor and crouched down and draw up that solution into a syringe. From there, she watched, incredibly, as that nurse walked over to another patient who was sleeping and then inject that solution into the lines.
The nurse moved sneakily. She was trying to hide the fact that she had done it. They didn't feel comfortable making an outcry because they were still hooked to machines, which that nurse had the responsibility of unhooking them from.
Ms. Hamilton got the patient care tech that she trusted and told her what she'd seen.
They were able to identify Kim Saenz as being the person that had injected the bleach.
The patient is immediately rushed to the hospital for treatment as the clinic's administrators approach Kimberly Saenz, a licensed vocational nurse on staff.
And they said, why don't you go home, take the rest of the day off? We've got a matter we need to look into. And so they sent Kimberly home.
And the administrators there secured where Miss Holland Hamilton said that they had seen Kim, the nurse, place the syringes after she was finished with them. They did their own investigation of those two sharps containers. They opened them up. They found syringes which were not marked, empty 10 ml syringes without needles.
DaVita administrators immediately close the clinic until the investigation is concluded and patient safety can be guaranteed.
By this time, it was about 4:30 in the afternoon, and they called the Lufkin Police Department and said, we think we need to have the police come and let us turn this over to you.
The main thing we could do that night was seize everything that we could think of, take it back to the station, and then contact those who were much more knowledgeable than us about how to handle it. The decision we made that night was to take everything we could, because that medical waste contained in those 36 sharps containers was approximately 3 weeks worth of waste and covered the time period from April the 1st all the way up to April 28th.
With the evidence secured, Lufkin police look into Kimberly Saenz.
Kim was born locally. She had lived here all of her life. She didn't graduate from high school. She had become pregnant during her time in high school and left school because of that. For a while, she was a happy homemaker. There was ultimately problems with her first marriage.
After divorcing her first husband in 1997, Kim remarried in 2000 and had another child.
She needed to find a career, and she went to school, and she became a nurse.
We learned that she was fired from Woodland Heights Hospital for suspicion of stealing patient medication. She had moved to a couple of different jobs, and then she landed at the DaVita dialysis facility. During the time that she went to work at the DaVita dialysis facility, she was under investigation by the Texas Board of Nurse Examiners for the alleged theft of patient medication.
In the medical profession, apparently, it's really easy to pass from job to job. You can leave employers off of your references and resumes. No documented background check is required.
There was a mixed bag in terms of opinions, even among her patients, on whether she really had done what she'd been accused of doing.
I found it hard to believe that one person could intentionally kill that many people for no apparent reason. Why in little old Lufkin would there be a serial killer?
Coming up, police come face to face with an angel of death.
If I'm doing something wrong, I want to know that I don't want to kill somebody.
And the truth behind the deaths comes to light.
She had typed in, can bleach be detected in a dialysis line?
After patients witness a nurse appearing to inject bleach into a dialysis patient's lines, initial tests confirm their statements.
There were thousands of syringes in the sharps containers, and the police department took each container took each syringe out and labeled them and tested them with litmus paper. And it tested positive for a basic solution. So it supported the story of Ms. Hamilton that bleach had been in the syringe.
There was no reason for anyone to ever use a syringe to draw bleach in to measure it. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
2 days into their investigation of the deaths at the Lufkin Dialysis Clinic, detectives interview the accused nurse, Kimberly Saenz.
We didn't lay our cards out on the table, what the witnesses had seen or anything like that right off the bat. We just wanted to hear her side of the events.
There's things that we want to sit down and discuss with you.
Hey, I've only been here 8 months. But I just wonder about the blood pressures, when they come in and they're really high. I get so scared they're going to stroke out. And it's just scary. And they said that we've had so many deaths in the past 7 months. And I'm scared to leave my patients. I'm just constantly, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?
Before police bring up the accusations, Kim goes on the defense, clearly aware she had been reported by patients.
What hurts me the most is for 2 patients to accuse me of giving another patient medication that was not ordered.
What did you give her any medicine?
I did give her some saline, only because she said she was cramping.
She herself brought up the issue of bleach and sort of suggested ways that bleach could have gotten into the patients.
If our machines are hooked up and they have some bleach in them, I haven't researched into that, but I just have to wonder what kind of reactions would have happened, I know we bleach them every week.
That brings up red flags in and of itself because we hadn't told her what the allegations were. And here she is already trying to prepare a ready-made explanation.
Police have been told bleach is used for sanitizing equipment exteriors, but not the way Kim describes.
1 part bleach to 10 parts water is used as a disinfectant.
You use a syringe to pull your 10 cc's of bleach up?
Sometimes I do when I can't find the little medicine cups. There wasn't any cups up there that day. But if you use a syringe, 10 cc's, then you're gonna have to, put it in the receptacle.
Investigators are skeptical.
I don't know what's going on here, and it's just scary. And if I'm doing something wrong, I want to know that I'm doing something wrong because I don't want to kill somebody.
Kimberly's interview is concluded, and she is allowed to leave.
We knew that the facility was closed and she wasn't going to be working on any other patients. It's frustrating. You may have a good idea in your head what happened, but until you can prove it, you understand you have to let them go.
After the interview, police continue testing the medical equipment involved.
Syringes that showed indications of having bleach they sent to a lab. DeVita had 8 sets of lines that came from patients who were believed to be victims.
This occurred over the period of about 3 or 4 days. The first thing we did was we identified that, yes, bleach was present in those sharps containers and in those syringes. Then we started trying to counteract that argument that she'd used it for measuring. We actually subpoenaed all the purchase orders to prove that there was cups always available. We also interviewed each employee to see if they'd ever heard of that being a practice or seen that being a practice, and none of them had.
The following day, Kimberly's husband, Kevin, provides some unexpected help.
Her husband had filed for a divorce. He actually contacted the police department.
Kimberly Saenz had a lot of problems in her marriage and her personal life. Her husband, Kevin, he was fed up.
He advised that he had worked on a computer she was using, and during the process of that, he had found that she had a search history for using the word hemo. Hemodialysis is the full technical term for what was being done at DaVita. Based upon that information, we were able to get a search warrant to seize her computers.
They found searches on the computer about the effect of bleach on patients, and she had typed in a question on her computer: can bleach be detected in a dialysis line?
The terms bleach and bleach poisoning were done on April the 1st before she went to work. People died on that day.
As the testing and investigation continues over the next several months, the two surviving patients in comas sadly pass away. 63-year-old Cora Bryant and 58-year-old Garland Kelly Jr.
He was in the hospital from April to August. And we had scriptures all over the wall, and we just believed God that he would wake up, you know. And then he actually died August 16th of 2008.
There are now 5 deaths law enforcement believes are connected to Kimberly Saenz. But to charge her, police still need solid evidence.
We still need the scientific proof that A, bleach had been introduced into those patients, and B, the introduction of that bleach had caused their deaths. And at that time, it wasn't there or available to us. Here's somebody that I believed had committed multiple murders on multiple occasions, and she's walking the street, so holding her accountable was a priority.
Investigators in Lufkin, Texas find themselves with a unique challenge: how to prove the existence of a serial killer without a clear murder weapon.
The mechanism of injury was the introduction of bleach into dialysis lines, and there's very little research where bleach has been used to injure somebody.
The black clot seen by a technician going through Garland Kelly's line provides a possible clue.
We suspected that bleach might change the color of blood, so we actually did an experiment where we went to the hospital and had them withdraw some arterial blood, which is bright red, from Sergeant Abbott, and we dropped some bleach in it, and it immediately turned black. What we believe is that the patient care technician witnessed the result of Kimberly Saenz injecting bleach. Red blood cells, your little cells that flow in the veins and arteries. When they encounter bleach, they explode. If enough blood cells explode or burst, this releases potassium. Potassium gets to the heart, causes cardiac arrest.
What it probably felt like to my mom was being burned from the inside out. I can't imagine the pain that they went through.
How could another human being do that to anybody? And then to think that they not only did it to my mom, but they were doing it to multiple people, it was overwhelming.
But now detectives are faced with another problem.
It's one thing to say we think it's likely that the defendant in this case put bleach into the lines of her patients, but it's quite another then to be able to prove that that is what killed them, especially in patients who are already generally health compromised.
But there is no ordinary medical blood test to test for the presence of bleach.
We got a real break in the case when we found an expert who had been doing studies with rats involving chlorine gas. And chlorine is basically the same thing as bleach. This expert explained that if bleach had been introduced in significant amounts into the bloodstream of the patient, they should have an amino acid called chlorotyrosine that should be at a very high level within their system.
What he found is every blood sample from a suspected victim showed the presence of chlorotyrosine.
Police can now definitively say bleach was used to kill 5 patients and seriously injure several others. Now they just have to prove Kimberly Saenz was the one who did it.
They looked at the employment records, and the only employee that was present for every cardiac event was Kimberly Saenz. We presented it to the grand jury. We had 5 murder victims, and we had 5 people that we believe were injured by the injection of bleach that did not die but recovered. They returned an indictment for capital murder and then 5 counts of aggravated assault.
They agreed with us that there was enough probable cause to issue an arrest warrant for Kim, and she was ultimately arrested April the 9th of 2009.
She had a $500,000 bond. We heard word through the community that she was bonded out.
Kimberly Saenz was described as shy, kind, sweet. No one could believe that she was behind this.
The only restriction she had was not working in healthcare, and she was required to wear a GPS monitor.
It makes you angry to think about the person who took your mother's life, walking around free, able to wake up in the morning, able to do anything. It makes you angry.
Potentially responsible for the death of 5 seniors in the small town of Lufkin, Texas, Kimberly Saenz remains free for nearly 3 years while prosecutors prepare their case against her. She is ultimately charged with murder for the deaths of Fran Metcalf, Clara Strange, Garland Kelly, Cora Bryant, and Opal May Few. And she is charged with assault for 5 surviving victims.
The case was pretty complicated, and her defense lawyer wanted records of DeVita, and he wanted an opportunity for other experts to review the records.
In March 2012, the trial finally begins.
I was able to go to the trial, not every single day. It was too overwhelming to listen, to look at her.
Kimberly Saenz seemed very relaxed. She was cheerful, joking with her counsel. Just seemed like she did not understand that she was on trial for capital murder.
Kimberly's defense attorney uses the clinic's records to argue they are the real culprits.
He laid out a compelling argument that she was a scapegoat for this Fortune 500 company, and they were trying to pin it on one person in order to shift the blame.
One of his defensive theories was there was a chlorine leak, that somehow tap water was getting through into the system. Now, if there had been a tap water leak, everybody would have gotten sick because every patient got the same water, but only certain patients got sick and certain patients died.
The problem for the defense in that regard was we had repeated test results for the water showing that there was no bleach in it.
The trial lasted 4 weeks, and the jury deliberated part of one afternoon and into the next day, so it was quite a quick deliberation for the amount of evidence they had to go through.
On March 30th, 2012, the jury renders its verdict.
Kim Saenz was convicted of capital murder and aggravated assault, 3 counts of aggravated assault, and acquitted on 2. She was sentenced to 1 term of life without parole and 3 counts of 20 years each for the ag assaults.
When the verdict was read, and then when sentence was passed, there was a sense of relief that she can't do it to anyone else.
The only real question is why, and everybody wants to know that. The only one that knows it is her, and until she explains it, nobody will know. It seemed like she was killing just indiscriminately for no reason. My personal theory, she couldn't control what was going on in her life, and I believe she took her frustrations out on those patients.
Her marriage was falling apart, and this was her way of asserting control and power in what was a very chaotic personal life.
All the other demons that she had in her life, I believe that's what caused her to snap.
Garland Kelly Jr., the myth, the man, the legend. He was a man covered in the grace of God, had so much love.
My mom was a God-loving person, and she speaks to me a lot of times of just saying, "Wanda, just let it go, forgive." And I know that she would have forgiven her, and I'm trying.
Cora Bryant died just a few weeks shy of her 65th birthday, and her family and her loved ones remember her as someone who had just a great sense of humor and laughter about her, and she loved her children and her grandchildren very much.
There's no way to really describe in words what my mom meant to us as a family. She was the glue that held us together. The loss that we endured, I can't convey in real words.
The festive season of late October in the year 2021 brought a unique energy to Northern California. In the city of Fairfield, situated just north of the San Francisco Bay Area, the night of October 30th was filled with the typical sounds of holiday celebrations. Police officers on patrol managed calls regarding neighborhood gatherings, firework displays, and the general revelry of the night before Halloween. Yet, amidst the routine commotion, a quiet tragedy was unfolding that would soon mobilize multiple law enforcement agencies, military personnel, and an entire community. This case, which began as a standard missing person report, quickly transformed into a complex investigation of betrayal, intense romantic jealousy, and a clumsy attempt to conceal a terrible deed. By examining the psychological motives behind this crime, the analytical methods utilized by the police, and the specific digital and forensic clues that cracked the case, we can draw profound life lessons to prevent future tragedies and understand how modern justice is served. To understand the tragedy, one must first understand the life of the young woman at the center of it. Leilani Beacham was born on June 12th, in the year 2002, in Long Beach, California. She was the eldest of 3 children, and from her earliest years, her family affectionately referred to her as Tiny but Mighty. Though she was small in stature, Leilani possessed a massive personality, a vibrant spirit, and a deep-seated desire to help those around her. Her stepfather, Onyx, a real estate broker, and her mother, Violet, a real estate agent, raised her with strong values of compassion and ambition. Growing up, Leilani developed a strong interest in automotive culture, a passion she shared with her brother Anthony, often helping him work on vehicles and attending local car shows. She was also a loving and supportive older sister, enjoying simple movie nights and sharing makeup tips. Ve Kepi Hat, her younger sibling. After completing high school, Leilani moved to San Jose to attend college, choosing to follow in the footsteps of her parents by pursuing a career in real estate. Despite her busy academic life, she remained connected to her friends and her love for local car gatherings, known in the region as sideshows. On the evening of October 30th, Leilani met with her close friend Sarah to celebrate the holiday weekend. The two young women spent the afternoon preparing their costumes, with Leilani dressing as a special weapons and tactics officer, and Sarah choosing a skeleton dress. They attended a gathering in Sacramento, a last-minute plan, where they were joined by Juan Peralta, a 19-year-old enlisted airman stationed at Travis Air Force Base. Juan was Leilani's former boyfriend from a year prior, and the two had recently reconnected. Sarah observed that Leilani still held deep affection for Juan, although she tried to hide the extent of her feelings. The group enjoyed the gathering until approximately 2:00 in the morning on October 31st, at which point Leilani decided to accompany Juan to his home in Fairfield, which was about 40 minutes away. Because she planned to return the next day, Leilani left her personal vehicle and her belongings at Sarah's apartment, fully expecting to be dropped off in the morning. The following morning brought the first signs of alarm. Sarah woke up at approximately 9:00 and discovered a missed call from Leilani. When Sarah tried to call her back, there was no answer. Checking Leilani's digital location, Sarah saw that the phone appeared to be on the highway, leading her to assume her friend was currently traveling back to Sacramento. However, as 30 minutes passed and Leilani still had not arrived, Sarah checked the location sharing application once more. She was alarmed to find that the location was no longer moving and was nowhere near Sacramento. Soon after, Leilani's mobile phone went completely dead and ceased transmitting any signals, with all outgoing communications ending around 10:00 in the morning. Sarah began texting and calling all of Leilani's friends, but none of them had heard from her since the previous evening. Lacking the contact details for Leilani's family at that time, Sarah made the responsible decision to contact the Fairfield Police Department to report her missing. Officer Christopher Grimm received the dispatch call regarding the missing person at Moatfee approximately 8:40 in the evening on October 31st. Recognizing that a sudden cessation of digital activity and communication was highly unusual, for a 19-year-old student, Officer Grimm began his preliminary investigation. He systematically contacted local hospitals, medical facilities, and detention centers to determine if Leilani had been admitted due to a medical emergency or had been arrested. These initial steps are vital in any missing person case to rule out common administrative or medical explanations. As the night progressed, Leilani's parents, Violet and Onyx, also grew deeply concerned when they could not reach their daughter. By the afternoon of the following day, they contacted Sarah, only to learn that a missing person report had already been filed and that the police were actively searching. When the case was transferred to the Investigations Bureau, detectives immediately recognized several critical warning signs. Leilani's entire digital pattern of life had ceased. There were no outgoing phone calls, no location pings, and absolutely no transactions on her bank cards or debit accounts. In the modern era, a complete and sudden halt to all digital and financial activity is a strong indicator of potential foul play. Detectives began gathering background information, learning about Leilani's casual relationship with Juan and his status as an active duty airman. Using the address provided by Sarah, which she had obtained through mutual acquaintances, Officer Grimm and his partner traveled to Juan's residence near Travis Air Force Base on the east side of Fairfield. Upon arriving at the home, the officers found the residence dark, with no vehicles in the driveway and no response at the front door. Conducting a careful perimeter check, the officers walked to the backyard and looked through the exterior windows. While they observed no immediate signs of a struggle or visible evidence of a crime, they recognized the need to locate Juan. The dispatch center contacted the security forces at Travis Air Force Base to reach Juan's commanding officers. The following morning, military officials informed the detectives that Juan had not reported for duty and had not been seen for several days. However, military security directed the investigators to Juan's closest friend on the base, another young airman named Damian Ponders. The interaction with Damian Ponders marked a major turning point in the investigation, highlighting the critical behavioral clues that experienced law enforcement officers rely upon to identify deception. Detective Chapman and his partner interviewed Damian in his dormitory room. Initially, Damian claimed that he had left the holiday gathering with Juan and returned to the house in Fairfield, and that Leilani had not accompanied them. He stated that he had simply gone to work the next morning after being awakened by his supervisor. During this initial questioning, detectives observed significant physical indicators of extreme stress and anxiety. Damian was exceptionally fidgety. His palms were sweating profusely, and he exhibited a look of fear. When the lead detective made a pointed statement regarding the necessity of finding Leilani even if she was deceased, Damian reacted with a pronounced physical gulp. This involuntary physiological response is a well-known indicator of fear and guilt, showing that the subject possesses critical information that they are actively trying to suppress. Although the detectives had to temporarily release Damian because they lacked the legal authority to detain him, the psychological pressure of the interview quickly took effect. Shortly after leaving the dormitory, investigators received a call from Juan's commanding officer, stating that Juan had agreed to meet with them at the base. While Juan was being prepared for his interview, Damian descended from his dormitory room and requested to speak with the detectives again, expressing a desire to change his statement. This decision reflects a common theme in criminal investigations, where the psychological burden of concealing a serious crime becomes too great for an accomplice to bear, especially when confronted by professional, non-confrontational questioning. In his second statement, Damian confessed that Leilani had indeed returned to the Fairfield residence with Juan and himself after the gathering. Damian, who had been highly intoxicated, slept on the downstairs couch while Juan and Leilani went to an upstairs bedroom. The following morning, Damian woke up late, missed his alarms, and rushed to the base for work. A few hours later, Juan contacted him with a highly unusual request, asking him to purchase specific cleaning supplies, including bleach, towels, and other sanitizing items. When Damian returned to the house with the supplies, he discovered that Leilani had been killed and agreed to assist his best friend in cleaning the scene and concealing the event. Juan, who was waiting in an adjacent interview room, was able to hear portions of Damian's confession. Recognizing that his friend had revealed the truth, Juan decided to cooperate, admitting to his role in the cover-up, but adamantly denying that he was the person who pulled the trigger. Instead, Juan directed the investigators' attention to his former girlfriend, 21-year-old Jessica Quintanilla. Juan described his relationship with Jessica as highly volatile, unstable, and marked by frequent breakups. According to Juan, he and Jessica had recently separated, prompting him to reconnect with Leilani. On the morning of October 31st, while Leilani was still asleep in the upstairs bedroom, Jessica arrived at the residence to retrieve her personal belongings. An argument ensued, during which Jessica discovered Leilani in the bed. The motive for the crime was rooted in intense romantic jealousy, anger, and a desire for control. Upon discovering Leilani, Jessica expressed extreme anger, exited the residence to retrieve a firearm from her vehicle, returned to the bedroom, and shot Leilani. Juan claimed that Jessica then threatened him and his family, utilizing the reputation of her brother, Marco Quintanilla, who was a convicted felon on parole, to coerce his cooperation. Terrified of retaliation, Juan agreed to help Jessica transport Leilani's body to a remote, secluded hillside in the Salinas area, approximately 2 hours away, where they disposed of her in a deep, brush-covered ravine. The lack of sophistication displayed by the perpetrators in the aftermath of the crime is a striking aspect of this case. It is a common misconception among individuals who commit violent acts that they can easily erase physical evidence of a crime using household cleaning products. Juan and Damien believed that washing the bedroom and garage with bleach would prevent detection. However, modern forensic science possess highly sensitive presumptive testing agents, such as Blue Star, which react with even the most microscopic traces of blood, causing them to luminesce under specialized lighting. When forensic technicians processed Juan's home, the application of this chemical agent immediately revealed extensive areas in the bedroom and garage that glowed brightly, indicating the presence of washed-away blood. Furthermore, investigators located a bullet strike in the bedroom wall and successfully recovered a projectile fragment, providing concrete ballistic evidence that matched the physical description of the event. The lack of sophistication was further demonstrated by the highly impractical and desperate plans formulated by the suspects to permanently destroy the evidence. Following the disposal of the body, Jessica, her brother Marco, and Juan visited a local home improvement store to purchase shovels, duct tape, lighter fluid, and pliers. Juan revealed to investigators that Jessica had formulated a plan to return to the remote site, use the pliers to remove Leilani's teeth to prevent dental identification, and set the remains on fire to destroy all physical evidence. This plan reflects a complete failure to comprehend the realities of modern forensic identification, which relies heavily on DNA analysis, skeletal structure, and digital tracking, rendering such primitive attempts at concealment entirely futile. Ultimately, it was the digital footprint of the suspects that provided the most undeniable evidence of their guilt. Although criminals often believe they can operate in secrecy, the modern digital landscape acts as an unbiased, permanent witness to their actions. Detectives obtained search warrants for the mobile devices of all parties involved. By analyzing the global positioning system data and cellular tower records, investigators were able to map the exact movements of Jessica's phone on the day of the crime. The data placed her phone at Juan S.'s residence at the precise time of the shooting, tracked her journey along the highway to the home improvement store, and followed her route to the exact remote hillside in Salinas, where Leilani's body was discovered. This digital map perfectly corroborated the chronological timeline provided by Juan and Damien, completely dismantling any claims of innocence. The arrest of Jessica Quintanilla and her brother Marco occurred on Halloween night in Pittsburgh, California. Officers spotted Jessica driving Juan's highly recognizable personal vehicle, which was a prized possession he often brought to local car events. Marco arrived at the scene shortly after her detention and was arrested for a parole violation. When brought to the Fairfield Police Department for questioning, Jessica attempted to project an attitude of calm indifference, answering questions with feigned ignorance and expressing annoyance at being detained. However, a critical error in judgment occurred when she requested to speak with her brother while in custody. Believing they could communicate privately, Jessica and Marco whispered to one another in the interrogation room. Unbeknownst to them, the room's recording equipment remained active, capturing their conversation. In a quiet whisper, Jessica asked her brother what he had told the police about the body. This question was a devastating blow to her defense, as an innocent person who had no knowledge of the crime would have no reason to inquire about the location or status of a hidden body. This self-incriminating statement, captured clearly on audio, demonstrated a complete lack of awareness regarding standard law enforcement procedures and provided prosecutors with a powerful tool to prove her involvement. During the trial, which took place in October and November of the year 2024, the prosecution presented a seamless case built on forensic evidence, digital tracking, and eyewitness testimony. Damian Ponders and Juan Peralta were granted immunity from prosecution for the murder in exchange for their truthful testimony regarding the events they witnessed and their roles in the cover-up. Both individuals were subsequently discharged from the military, ensuring they faced administrative consequences for their actions. Marco Quintanilla was tried alongside his sister and was convicted of serving as an accessory after the fact, receiving a sentence of 4 years in prison. In a desperate bid to avoid conviction, Jessica took the stand in her own defense and offered a completely new version of events. She claimed that Leilani's death was the result of an accidental discharge that occurred during a physical struggle over the firearm between herself and Juan. However, this defense was immediately disproved by the objective findings of the medical examiner. The autopsy report concluded that the bullet had entered the left side of Leilani's head, a trajectory that was entirely inconsistent with the physical positioning described by Jessica during her testimony. This scientific contradiction exposed her story as a fabrication, demonstrating that objective physical evidence will always prevail over dishonest testimony. On November 19th in the year 2024, the jury returned a verdict of guilty, and Jessica Quintanilla was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. This tragic case offers profound educational lessons for communities and individuals, particularly regarding the warning signs of toxic relationships and the importance of early intervention. Volatile. On-again, off-again, relationships often harbor deep-seated issues of possessiveness, control, and emotional instability. It is vital for individuals to recognize that extreme jealousy is not a sign of affection, but rather a dangerous red flag that can escalate into violence. Creating open lines of communication among friends and family members is essential in this case. Sarah Sass' immediate action in reporting Leilani missing, when her digital location froze, was a crucial step that allowed law enforcement to initiate their search rapidly. Had Sarah delayed her report, the perpetrators may have succeeded in their plans to further desecrate and destroy the evidence, denying Leilani's family the closure and justice they deserved. To catch perpetrators faster and resolve such cases with greater efficiency, law enforcement agencies can draw valuable experiences from this investigation. First, the rapid utilization of digital forensics, including immediate analysis of location sharing applications and cellular tower records, is paramount. In the early hours of a missing person case, securing search warrants for electronic communication and location data can provide investigators with an immediate geographic area to focus their efforts. Second, seamless interagency cooperation, such as the collaboration between the Fairfield Police Department and the military security forces at Travis Air Force Base, is essential when dealing with suspects who have access to secure facilities or specialized networks. Finally, the strategic use of behavioral analysis during initial interviews can help officers identify key indicators of deception, allowing them to focus their resources on the individuals most likely to possess critical information. Ultimately, while the conviction of those responsible brought a sense of legal justice, it could never fully heal the profound loss experienced by Leilani's family. Her younger sister expressed the deep grief shared by her loved ones, noting that the loss felt as though a part of the family had been buried alongside her. However, Leilani's legacy of kindness, strength, and compassion continues to live on. Her family has dedicated themselves to establishing a foundation in her honor, ensuring that her memory is preserved and that her spirit of helping the underdog continues to make a positive impact on the world. This tragic event serves as a solemn reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked anger and jealousy, the absolute certainty of modern forensic justice, and the enduring power of a community united in honoring the truth. The human heart is capable of profound warmth, yet when twisted by possessiveness, it can give rise to the most destructive impulses. In the study of criminology, few occurrences are as frequent or as tragic as those stemming from the volatile breakdown of youthful relationships. The case of 19-year-old Leilani Beacham, which unfolded in late October of the year 2021, serves as a poignant and deeply educational entry point into understanding these dynamics. It is a narrative that highlights not only the suddenness with which a young life can be stolen, but also the ultimate futility of attempts to escape justice. By exploring the psychological undercurrents of this event, the missteps of those who sought to conceal the truth, and the meticulous methodologies employed by law enforcement, we can derive meaningful lessons to safeguard our communities and honor the memory of those we have lost. To understand why such tragedies occur with alarming frequency, one must examine the complex emotional landscape of young adulthood. At 19 or 20 years of age, individuals are often navigating the intense transitions of independence, where emotional maturity may not yet match the depth of the feelings they experience. Relationships during this phase can easily become volatile, characterized by an on-again, off-again pattern that breeds insecurity. When a relationship lacks stability, healthy communication often breaks down, replaced by jealousy and a desire for control. In the criminal justice system, we repeatedly witness how a perceived slight or the sudden presence of a rival can transform insecurity into a dangerous, impulsive rage. In this instance, the tragedy was set in motion by a web of unresolved emotional attachments. Juan Peralta, a 20-year-old enlisted airman, had been involved in a volatile, unstable relationship with 21-year-old Jessica Quintanilla. During one of their frequent separations, Juan reconnected with his former companion, Leilani Beacham. For Leilani, the relationship was casual, friendly, and free of heavy expectations. a reflection of her own generous and uncomplicated nature. However, for Jessica, the boundaries of ownership and control were absolute. This toxic possessiveness is a common precursor to violence. It treats another human being not as an individual with agency, but as a prize or property. When Jessica discovered Leilani in Juan's home on the morning of October 30th, 2021, her reaction was not one of rational dialogue or even simple departure, but a swift, catastrophic decision driven by a complete lack of emotional regulation. Leilani Beecham was a young woman who brought immense joy to those around her. Known affectionately by her family as Tiny but Mighty, she possessed a vibrant personality that far exceeded her small physical stature. She had a passion for cars, a hobby nurtured by her brother Anthony, and she enjoyed attending local car shows and sideshows. Beyond these interests, she was a dedicated sister, a student pursuing a promising career in real estate to follow in the footsteps of her mother Violet and her stepfather Onyx, and a loyal friend. On the night of October 29th, she had traveled to Sacramento to spend time with her close friend Sarah. The two got dressed up for the Halloween weekend, with Sarah wearing a skeleton costume and Leilani dressing as a tactical officer. They attended a social gathering where they met up with Juan. As the gathering wound down around 2 in the morning, Leilani decided to accompany Juan to his residence in Fairfield, a drive of approximately 40 minutes. She low-epepte her car and belongings at Sarah's apartment, fully intending to return the following morning. This simple decision, made in good faith, would be her last. When Sarah awoke around 9 in the morning, she found a missed call from Leilani. Attempting to return the call, she received no response. Checking Leilani's shared digital location, Sarah's observed that the signal was on the freeway, leading her to assume her friend was on her way back. However, as the minutes turned into hours, the location ceased to progress towards Sacramento. By 10 in the morning, Leilani's phone was powered off and her digital footprint vanished. The sudden cessation of a young person's digital footprint is one of the most critical initial clues in a modern missing persons investigation. In the 21st century, our lives are deeply integrated with technology. A sudden stop in outgoing calls, messages, social media activity, and banking transactions is a stark deviation from the norm, indicating to seasoned investigators that something is gravely amiss. Recognizing this anomaly, Sarah began contacting Leilani's friends and family, finding that no one had heard from her, and despite not knowing Juan's last name or address, Sarah took the crucial step of contacting the Fairfield Police Department to report her friend missing. Officer Christopher Grimm was the first to receive the report at approximately 8:40 in the evening on October 30th. In the initial stages of a missing person inquiry, the primary objective is to eliminate benign explanations. Officer Grimm systematically contacted local hospitals and detention facilities to determine if Leilani had been admitted or detained. When these inquiries yielded no results, and when Leilani's parents, Violet and Onyx, contacted the department in deep distress, the gravity of the situation became clear. The investigation was swiftly escalated to the Detective Bureau. The breakthrough in locating the starting point of the search came when Sarah, through diligent efforts, obtained Juan's home address near Travis Air Force Base and provided it to the police. This allowed investigators to identify Juan as an enlisted airman. When officers visited the residence, they found the house dark and unoccupied, with no obvious signs of a struggle visible through the windows. Acting fey kepai te hat urgency, the police contacted military security forces to locate Juan and his close friend, another airman named Damien Ponders. It is at this juncture that the psychological element of deception becomes paramount. When detectives Chapman and his partner interviewed Damien Ponders in his military dormitory, they were observing more than just the words he spoke. They were watching his physiological responses. While Damien initially claimed that Leilani had not left the party with them, his body betrayed a far different story. In the realm of forensic interviewing, investigators look for non-verbal indicators of extreme stress. Damien was highly fidgety. His palms were visibly wet with perspiration, and when Detective Chapman noted that even if Leilani were deceased, her family deserved to know where she was, Damien exhibited what the detective described as a highly pronounced gulp. This physical manifestation of anxiety, often referred to colloquially as a guilty swallow, is the involuntary reaction to a perceived threat to one's safety or secrets. Recognizing this critical vulnerability, the detectives allowed the pressure of the situation to weigh on Damien. Shortly thereafter, while Juan was being interviewed in a separate room, Damien asked to speak with the investigators again. His conscience, combined with the realization that the police were closing in, prompted a full confession. He revealed that Leilani had indeed returned to the residence with them. He explained that after sleeping on the couch, he had gone to work, only to receive a phone call from Juan later that morning, requesting that he purchase bleach, towels, and other cleaning agents. Upon returning to the house, Damien discovered the tragic truth. Leilani had been killed, and Juan was in a state of panic, seeking assistance to conceal the deed. The subsequent confession of Juan Peralta shifted the focus of the investigation from a missing person search to a homicide inquiry. Juan detailed how Jessica Quintanilla had arrived at the home, discovered Leilani, and in a fit of extreme jealousy, retrieved a firearm from her vehicle and committed the violent act. Juan claimed that Jessica then threatened him, warning that any failure to assist her would result in harm to himself, his friend Damien, and his family, utilizing the reputation of her brother, Marco Quintanilla, a convicted felon on parole, as leverage. The attempts made by the perpetrators to cover up their actions reveal a striking combination of desperation and absolute foolishness, highlighting a common theme in criminal behavior: the belief that one can outsmart the collective resources of modern forensic science. Under Jessica's direction, the group embarked on a highly flawed cover-up. They transported Leilani's body to a remote wooded hillside near Salinas, approximately 30 yards off the roadway, in an area with poor cellular service, hoping she would remain undiscovered. They then returned to the residence to scrub the scene with bleach. The foolishness of their plan escalated further. Jessica, Juan, and Marco purchased shovels, duct tape, lighter fluid, and pliers from a local home improvement store, planning to return to the location to alter the body and destroy identifying evidence by fire. In doing so, they left a highly visible trail of digital and physical evidence. They drove Juan's easily identifiable custom vehicle, frequented stores equipped with high-definition surveillance cameras, and carried their personal cellular phones, which continuously pinged off local towers, creating an indelible record of their movements. The sophistication of modern law enforcement lies in its ability to synthesize these disparate threads of evidence. While the criminals believed they had successfully washed away the evidence of their deeds, the forensic team utilized Blue Star, a highly sensitive chemical agent that detects latent blood traces even after extensive cleaning. The application of this agent caused the bedroom and garage floor to glow with a brilliant blue fluorescence. revealing the true scale of the crime. Furthermore, investigators located a bullet fragment embedded within the bedroom wall, providing critical physical evidence that aligned with the trajectory of the event. In addition to physical forensics, digital forensics played a decisive role. By securing search warrants for the suspect's mobile devices, detectives dismantled Jessica's claims of ignorance. Though she protested her innocence during her initial interview, playing the part of an annoyed bystander, her digital history painted a far different picture. Her Instagram messages proved she was well aware of Leilani's identity and had previously confronted her at a car sideshow just a week prior, exhibiting intense hostility. Furthermore, the GPS data extracted from her phone placed her precisely at the home improvement store at the time the tools were purchased and at the remote ravine near Salinas, where Leilani's body had been placed. The capture of the suspects was executed swiftly. Jessica was apprehended while driving Juan's cherished vehicle, and her brother Marco was arrested shortly thereafter for parole violations. When presented with the overwhelming evidence gathered by the Fairfield Police Department, the state was able to construct an incredibly robust case. During the trial, which took place in October of the year 2024, Jessica took the stand in her own defense and attempted to alter her narrative. She claimed that the shooting was an accident, a consequence of a physical struggle between herself and Juan over the firearm. However, science would once again dismantle her falsehoods. The medical examiner testified that the trajectory of the projectile entered the left side of Leilani's head, a physical impossibility under the circumstances Jessica described. The jury, recognizing the clear pattern of deception and the overwhelming evidence of intent, delivered a verdict of guilty. Jessica Quintanilla was sentenced to 25 years to life for the murder of Leilani Beacham, while her brother Marco was sentenced to 4 years as an accessory after the fact. Damian Ponders and Juan Peralta, having cooperated with the prosecution under immunity, were dismissed from the military, their careers and reputations permanently ruined by their complicity. This tragic sequence of events offers profound lessons for the public on how to prevent such occurrences and recognize the warning signs of toxic relationships. First, it highlights the danger of ignoring early behavioral red flags. A partner who exhibits extreme jealousy, possessiveness, or attempts to dictate who one can associate with is displaying classic signs of abusive control. These behaviors should never be dismissed as signs of intense affection. Rather, they are indicators of potential danger. Young individuals must be encouraged to establish clear emotional boundaries and to seek help from trusted family members, friends, or professional organizations if they feel unsafe or trapped in a volatile relationship. Furthermore, the community must foster open dialogue about relationship safety and conflict resolution. Teaching young people how to navigate the end of a relationship with dignity and respect is a vital preventative measure. It is equally important for friends to remain vigilant. In this case, Sarah's quick action in reporting Leilani missing when her pattern of life abruptly changed was exemplary. If a friend suddenly ceases communication, misses appointments, or behaves in a manner inconsistent with their usual routine, taking immediate action and involving authorities can make a life-saving difference. From a law enforcement perspective, this case underscores the importance of rapid, multi-agency cooperation and the aggressive pursuit of early leads. The transition from a missing person case to a homicide investigation requires a flexible mindset. Officer Grimm's immediate checks of hospitals and jails, followed by Detective Chapman's keen observation of Damien Ponder's physical distress, demonstrate how human intuition and systematic procedures work hand in hand. By utilizing advanced technological tools such as location tracking, surveillance retrieval, and chemical enhancement agents, the police can reconstruct timelines with incredible speed, preventing suspects from destroying crucial evidence or fleeing the jurisdiction. Ultimately, the resolution of this case stands as a testament to the pursuit of justice and the enduring strength of Leilani Batcham's family. While no sentence can restore a vibrant, young life, the conviction of those responsible ensures they can no longer cause harm. In the wake of this tragedy, Leilani's loved ones have chosen to honor her memory by establishing a foundation in her name, transforming their profound grief into a source of support and advocacy for others. Through their strength and the dedication of the investigators who brought the truth to light, Leilani's legacy remains a powerful reminder of the value of life, the importance of community vigilance, and the inevitable triumph of justice over darkness. The crisp autumn air of late October in the year 2021 brought the usual festive energy to the communities of Northern California, where families and college students prepared for the celebrations of the evening before Halloween. In the town of Fairfield, situated just north of the San Francisco Bay Area, local patrol officers were preparing for a busy night shift, expecting the typical holiday calls regarding lively gatherings, unauthorized fireworks, and minor neighborhood disruptions. Officers like Christopher Grimm of the Fairfield Police Department patrolled the streets with the primary objective of ensuring public safety during a time of aiko community activity. However, the routine nature of the holiday patrols was fundamentally altered when a call was dispatched at MOF approximately 8:40 in the evening regarding a young woman who had seemingly vanished after attending a social gathering. This initial report, initiated by a concerned young woman named Sarah, marked the beginning of a complex and deeply distressing investigation into the disappearance of 19-year-old Leilani Batcham, a college student with a bright future and a family who loved her deeply. Sarah recounted to the responding officer that she and Leilani had spent the afternoon of October 30th preparing for the evening festivities, sharing the joy of doing their makeup, selecting their costumes, and taking photographs to document their friendship. Dressed in their respective holiday attire, with Sarah in a skeleton dress and Leilani in a tactical law enforcement costume, the two friends embarked on what was intended to be a memorable night of socializing. They attended a gathering in Sacramento, which was described as a casual get-together, where Leilani unexpectedly mentioned that her former partner, a 20-year-old active-duty airman named Juan Peralta, would be joining them. Although Leilani and Juan had ended their relationship approximately 1 year prior, they had recently reconnected, and those close to Leilani noted that she still possessed strong affection for him, even if she attempted to conceal the depth of her feelings. The group remained at the social gathering until approximately 2 in the morning of October 31st, at which point Leilani decided to depart with Juan, informing Sarah that she would be traveling to his residence in Fairfield, which was located approximately 40 minutes away. As the morning of October 31st progressed, the absence of Leilani began to generate significant concern. Sarah awoke around 9 in the morning to find a missed call from Leilani that had occurred earlier. When Sarah attempted to return the call, there was no response, prompting her to utilize a location-sharing application on her mobile device. The application initially indicated that Leilani was on the freeway, leading Sarah to assume that her friend was actively returning to Sacramento to retrieve her vehicle and personal belongings. However, subsequent checks of the location data revealed that the mobile device was no longer moving towards Sacramento, but was instead static in an entirely different area. Soon after, the location sharing service ceased to function, and Leilani's mobile phone appeared to be completely powered off. Sarah began contacting mutual friends, only to discover that no one had received any communication from Leilani since the early hours of the morning. Recognizing that this complete silence was entirely uncharacteristic of her friend, and lacking contact information for Leilani's family at that stage, Sarah took the responsible step of contacting the Fairfield Police Department to report her missing. The life of 19-year-old Leilani Beacham was characterized by vitality, ambition, and a deep devotion to her family and friends. Born on June 12, the year 2002, in Long Beach, California, Leilani was the eldest of 3 siblings. From her earliest years, her family affectionately referred to her as tiny but mighty, a testament to her vibrant, energetic personality that far exceeded her small physical stature. Her stepfather, Onyx, and her mother, Violet, described Leilani as a compassionate individual who consistently sought to protect and support those she perceived as less fortunate or vulnerable. As she grew, Leilani developed a diverse range of interests, including a profound appreciation for automotive culture, which she shared with her brother Anthony. Together, they enjoyed working on vehicles and attending local car shows, finding a sense of community within the automotive scene. After completing her high school education, Leilani moved to San Jose to pursue higher education, ultimately deciding to follow in the professional footsteps of her parents by studying real estate, demonstrating a strong drive to build a successful career. Upon receiving the missing person report, the Fairfield Police Department immediately initiated standard search protocols. Officer Christopher Grimm began by contacting regional medical centers and correctional facilities to determine if Leilani had been admitted under an alias or arrested during the holiday weekend. When these preliminary inquiries yielded no results, the urgency of the situation intensified, particularly when Leilani's concerned parents contacted the police department after being alerted to their daughter's absence. Leilani's mother, Violet, recalled their final text message exchange on the evening of October 30th, during which she had advised her daughter to remain highly cautious, to which Leilani had responded with reassurances of her safety. This exchange represented the absolute final communication received from Leilani, as her pattern of life went entirely dark from approximately 10 in the morning of October 31st. There were no outgoing communications, no incoming connections, and absolutely no financial transactions on her accounts, indicating to investigators that foul play was a distinct and highly concerning probability. The investigation quickly transitioned from a routine missing person inquiry to an active criminal investigation, as detectives focused on identifying the individuals last seen in Leilani's company. Armed with the address of the Fairfield residence, where Juan Peralta resided, which had been secured through the diligent efforts of Leilani's friends, patrol officers went to the location on the east side of the city, near Travis Air Force Base. Upon arrival, the residence appeared entirely dark and unoccupied, with no vehicles in the driveway and no response at the door. Officers conducted a visual check of the exterior and peered through the windows, observing no immediate signs of a physical struggle, broken glass, or visible trauma. Recognizing the military status of the resident, the police department contacted the security forces of Travis Air Force Base to coordinate with Juan S., First Sergeant, in an effort to locate him. The following morning, military authorities advised detectives that Juan was not present on the base and had not been seen for several days, pointing investigators toward his close associate, another active-duty airman named Damian Ponders. Detectives Chapman and his colleagues proceeded to interview Damian Ponders in his military dormitory, seeking to establish a clear timeline of the events following the party. During the initial questioning, Damian appeared highly nervous, exhibiting physical signs of distress, including visible sweating and fidgety behavior, which immediately raised the suspicions of the experienced investigators. Although Damian initially claimed that Leilani had not accompanied them back to the Fairfield residence and that he had simply gone to work after waking up, his physical reactions suggested otherwise. When detectives pressed him with the gravity of the situation, explaining that finding Leilani was the paramount objective regardless of her physical condition, Damian exhibited a highly pronounced physical reaction of fear. Although the detectives could not compel an immediate confession at that moment, they allowed him to depart, anticipating that the psychological weight of the situation would eventually prompt a disclosure. Shortly thereafter, Juan Pera Peralta agreed to speak with investigators through the coordination of his commanding officer, presenting a narrative that closely mirrored Damian S.'s initial denial. However, the dynamic of the investigation shifted dramatically when Damian Ponders requested to speak with detectives a second time, expressing a desire to amend his prior statement. Under the weight of his conscience, Damian confessed that Leilani had indeed returned to the Fairfield residence with them after the gathering in Sacramento. He explained that due to his level of intoxication, he had fallen asleep on the downstairs couch, while Juan and Leilani went upstairs to the primary bedroom. The following morning, after receiving a call from their military supervisor, Juan and Damian departed for the Air Force Base, with Leilani remaining asleep in the upstairs room. Damian further revealed that later that afternoon, he received a phone call from Juan, requesting that he purchase specific cleaning agents, including bleach, towels, and other sanitizing materials, and bring them to the residence. Upon arriving at the home with the requested supplies, Damian was confronted with the tragic reality that Leilani was deceased and that his close friend was actively seeking to obscure the evidence of a violent crime. Faced with the revelation of Damian S.'s amended statement, Juan Pera Peralta, who was being held in an adjacent interview room, chose to speak with investigators regarding the true sequence of events. While Juan confirmed the timeline of Leilani's presence at the residence, he strenuously denied being the individual responsible for her death, instead directing the blame toward his on-again, off-again companion, 21-year-old Jessica Quintanilla. Juan described his relationship with Jessica as highly volatile and possessive, noting that they had recently experienced another separation, during which he had reconnected with Leilani. According to Juan, Jessica arrived at the Fairfield residence unexpectedly on the morning of October 31st, seeking to retrieve some of her personal property. Upon entering the upstairs bedroom, Jessica discovered Leilani asleep in the bed, which immediately triggered an intense emotional reaction. Juan claimed that Jessica departed the residence briefly to retrieve a firearm from her vehicle, returned to the bedroom, confronted them, and discharged the weapon, resulting in the immediate demise of Leilani. Juan further asserted that Jessica threatened his safety and the well-being of his family, citing the criminal history of her brother, Marco Quintanilla, who was on active parole for a prior conviction of attempted murder, as a reason for his compliance. Under the influence of this perceived threat, Juan agreed to assist in the concealment of the crime. He detailed how they loaded Leilani's body into a vehicle and transported her to a remote, heavily wooded area in Monterey County near Salinas, where they left her remains on a steep hillside covered in dense brush. Juan also explained that they returned to the Fairfield residence to utilize the cleaning supplies purchased by Damien to wash away any physical evidence of the confrontation. Following the cleanup, Juan claimed that they met with Marco Quintanilla, who allegedly reinforced the threats against Juan, telling him that if his sister faced legal consequences, Juan would as well. Juan stated that he provided Marco with shovels, other materials, and the firearm used in the incident, and that they had purchased additional items from a home improvement store with the intent of returning to the site to further obscure the identity of the remains before law enforcement intervened. Equipped with the specific geographical details provided by Juan, investigators immediately coordinated with regional search teams to locate Leilani's remains. Search led them to a secluded, winding roadway in a rural section of Salinas, characterized by poor cellular service and dense vegetation. Approximately 30 yards down a steep slope, officers located the deceased young woman, confirming the tragic reality of her passing. While the medical examiner's office began the process of conducting an autopsy, forensic specialists descended upon the Fairfield residence on Cascade Lane, utilizing specialized chemical reagents designed to detect latent blood traces. Despite the thorough attempts by the perpetrators to sanitize the scene, the application of chemical indicators revealed significant fluorescent reactions in the bedroom and garage, demonstrating that large quantities of physical evidence had been present. Furthermore, investigators located a ballistic impact point within the bedroom wall and successfully recovered a projectile fragment, which provided crucial physical evidence to support the timeline and nature of the incident. As the physical evidence began to align, detectives focused their efforts on apprehending Jessica Quintanilla. She was ultimately located in Pittsburgh, California, operating Juan's personal vehicle, which was known to be his most valued possession. Upon her arrest by local officers, her brother Marco Quintanilla arrived at the scene and was subsequently detained for a violation of his parole terms. During her subsequent interrogation, Jessica exhibited a calm, almost indifferent demeanor, appearing annoyed by the inquiries of the detectives and denying any knowledge of Leilani's disappearance or the events of that weekend. However, the strategic decision by investigators to allow Jessica and Marco to communicate briefly while in custody yielded critical evidence. Believing they were not being actively monitored, Jessica was overhead whispering to her brother, inquiring about what information he had provided to the police regarding the location of the body. This critical admission directly undermined her claims of complete ignorance and established her direct involvement in the conspiracy. Although Marco Quintanilla initially attempted to remain silent, the prospect of facing severe parole violations and accessory charges prompted him to cooperate with the investigation. He admitted to meeting Juan for the first time on the morning of the incident and learning of the tragedy, though he claimed his involvement was limited. Marco also coordinated the surrender of a firearm through an associate, though subsequent forensic analysis determined that this specific weapon was not the instrument used in the crime. The actual firearm utilized was never recovered by authorities. Despite the missing weapon, prosecutors accumulated a wealth of circumstantial, forensic, and digital evidence to support the charges against the suspects. Jessica Quintanilla was charged with first-degree murder, while Marco Quintanilla was charged ve kep itehat, being an accessory after the fact and illegal possession of a firearm. Damian Ponders and Juan Pera Peralta were ultimately granted immunity from prosecution in exchange for their truthful testimony during the legal proceedings, a decision that generated complex emotions for the victim's family, but was deemed necessary to secure a conviction against the primary perpetrator. To build a definitive case, investigators obtained search warrants for Jessica electronic devices and social media accounts. The digital forensic analysis revealed that, despite her claims of being unaware of Juan's prior relationship with Leilani, Jessica had actively monitored Leilani's social media activity and had expressed deep resentment toward her in various communications. Furthermore, digital records confirmed that approximately 1 week prior to the tragedy, Jessica had confronted Leilani at an automotive gathering in Sacramento, exhibiting hostile behavior and attempting to initiate a physical altercation due to Leilani's presence in Juan's vehicle. Cell phone location data also provided an undeniable geographical timeline, placing Jessica's device at the Fairfield residence during the estimated time of the incident, along the route to Monterey County, and at the specific location where the remains were discovered. Surveillance footage from a home improvement store also captured Jessica and Juan purchasing tools and cleaning supplies, completely dismantling her defense of non-involvement. The trial of Jessica and Marco Quintanilla commenced in October of the year 2024, lasting approximately 5 weeks. Prosecutors presented a detailed narrative of a crime fueled by intense jealousy, rage, and a desire for control. They argued that Jessica, unable to accept the termination of her relationship with Juan and his continued connection with Leilani, acted deliberately and with malice. During the proceedings, Jessica took the witness stand in her own defense, altering her narrative to claim that the incident was the result of an accidental discharge of the firearm during a physical struggle with Juan. However, the medical examiner's anatomical testimony conclusively refuted this claim, proving that the entry point of the ballistic wound was inconsistent with a struggle of that nature, thereby exposing her testimony as a complete fabrication. On November 19th, the jury returned a verdict of guilty, convicting Jessica Quintanilla of first-degree murder and sentencing her to 25 years to life in state prison, while Marco Quintanilla was convicted as an accessory and sentenced to 4 years. An analysis of this tragic case reveals profound insights into the psychological motives of relationship-based crimes and the critical errors made by those who attempt to evade justice. Crimes of this nature often stem from a destructive desire for ownership and control over another individual, where the perpetrator views a partner not as an independent person, but as personal property. When this perception is challenged by a separation or the introduction of a new relationship, the resulting injury to the perpetrator's ego can manifest as extreme resentment, impulsivity, and violent rage. These cases occur with tragic frequency because individuals often lack the emotional maturity and conflict resolution skills necessary to process rejection and jealousy in a healthy manner. leading them to resort to extreme actions to assert dominance and control over the situation. The sophistication of the perpetrators in this case was heavily undermined by their complete disregard for the capabilities of modern forensic science and digital tracking. While they attempted to engage in an elaborate cover-up, including the purchase of cleaning agents, the transportation of the victim over a distance of more than 100 miles, and the attempts to destroy physical evidence, their actions left an undeniable trail of digital and physical clues. The rapid progression of the investigation was made possible by several key factors, most notably the immediate actions of Leilani's friend Sarah, whose early report and preservation of location data provided investigators with a vital starting point. Additionally, the physical evidence revealed by chemical testing, the extraction of ballistic fragments from the bedroom wall, and the comprehensive analysis of mobile device location data created an airtight case that no verbal denial could overcome. From this heartbreaking loss, several critical life lessons emerge that can help communities prevent similar tragedies. It is essential for individuals to recognize the early warning signs of possessive and volatile behavior within relationships, including extreme monitoring of social media, unwarranted hostility toward acquaintances, and attempts to control a partner's associations. When these warning signs escalate into threats or physical confrontations, it is imperative to seek support from family, friends, or professional organizations rather than attempting to manage the danger privately. Education surrounding healthy relationship dynamics, emotional regulation, and safe separation strategies must be prioritized within communities to equip young people with the tools necessary to navigate interpersonal conflicts safely and constructively. To enhance the speed and efficiency of future investigations, law enforcement agencies can draw upon the successful elements demonstrated in this case. The seamless coordination between civil police departments and military security forces at Travis Air Force Base was a critical factor in quickly locating and interviewing key individuals before evidence could be further compromised. Additionally, the rapid utilization of digital forensics, including the immediate analysis of cell phone location records and social media histories, highlights the importance of maintaining advanced technical capabilities within local police departments. By prioritizing rapid interagency communication, investing in forensic technology, and conducting thorough, behaviorally informed interviews, law enforcement can quickly cut through deceptive narratives to establish the truth, secure justice for victims, and ensure the safety of the communities they serve. The journey of a young life is often filled with the promise of tomorrow, the excitement of discovery, and the sweet, simple joys of friendship and family. Yet, in a world where human emotions can sometimes spiral into dark and unpredictable territory, the innocence of youth can find itself intersecting with the tragic consequences of unchecked passion, possessiveness, and jealousy. When we analyze the tragic events surrounding the disappearance and loss of Leilani Beacham, a 19-year-old college student with a bright future ahead of her, we are forced to look deeply into the psychological, social, and systemic factors that allow such heart-rending cases to occur. By examining the subtle warning signs of toxic relationships, the intricate methods used by modern law enforcement to uncover the truth, and the profound lessons that communities must draw from these events, we can work together to foster a safer, more vigilant society where the light of justice always overcomes the shadows of deceit. To truly understand this case, one must first look at the life that was so abruptly cut short. Leilani Beacham, born on June 12, 2002, in Long Beach, California, was a young woman of remarkable character and spirit. Known affectionately by her family as Tiny but Mighty, she possessed a small physical stature but an incredibly large and vibrant personality. She was the oldest of 3 children, growing up in a close-knit household where she naturally stepped into the role of a protective, loving big sister. Her stepmother, Violet, who entered her life when Leilani was only 4 years old, described her as someone who always stood up for the underdog, making it her personal mission to support those she felt were less fortunate. Her father, Onyx, a real estate broker, and Violet, a real estate agent, provided a nurturing environment that inspired Leilani to pursue a career in the same field. After completing high school, she moved to San Jose to attend college, determined to follow in her parents' footsteps and build a successful career in real estate. Yet, Leilani was not defined solely by her career ambitions. She had a deep, genuine passion for automotive culture, a love that stemmed from watching her brother Anthony work on vehicles. She was a regular attendee at local car shows and sideshows, which in the regional culture of Northern California served as massive, informal social gatherings where young people shared their appreciation for cars, watched driving demonstrations, and formed tight-knit communities. For Leilani, these events were places of joy, laughter, and camaraderie. She loved the creativity of doing her hair and makeup, dressing up, and enjoying the vibrant energy of youth alongside her friends. It was within this social circle that she crossed paths with Juan Peralta, a 20-year-old enlisted airman stationed near Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield, California. The relationship between Leilani and Juan was described by those close to them as casual, friendly, and free of heavy expectations. They had known each other for about a year and had reconnected after some time apart. Their bond was comfortable, characterized by mutual appreciation rather than intense, possessive attachment. However, the social landscape around them was far more complicated. Unbeknownst to Leilani, Juan was also involved in a highly volatile, on-again, off-again relationship with another young woman, 21-year-old Jessica Quintanilla. Jessica, a mother of 2 young children who worked as a dental assistant and a caregiver at a senior living facility, was described by her family as energetic and intelligent. But investigators would later uncover a pattern of behavior dominated by an intense need for control, extreme jealousy, and an inability to manage rejection. The intersection of these 2 very different relationship dynamics created a silent, dangerous friction. In the modern era, social media often acts as a magnifying glass for personal insecurities and conflicts. A week before the tragedy, an incident occurred at an automotive sideshow in the Sacramento area. Jessica, spotting Leilani sitting inside Juan's vehicle, approached the car in a state of hat agitation, opening the door and attempting to instigate a physical confrontation. Leilani, confused and startled by this sudden outburst from a person she barely knew, recounted the strange encounter to her friends, describing how Jessica had reacted. They kept itahat, intense anger, simply because Leilani was in Juan's presence. This prior confrontation serves as a critical indicator of the mounting possessiveness and hostility that would ultimately culminate in violence. The tragedy began to unfold on the weekend of Halloween, on the night of October 30th, 2021. It was a festive time, and Leilani had traveled from San Jose to stay with her close friend Sarah in Sacramento. The 2 young women spent the evening getting dressed up, doing their makeup, and taking photographs to document their fun. Sarah wore a skeleton costume, while Leilani dressed as a police officer. They attended a small gathering, a last-minute event where Leilani mentioned that Juan would be meeting up with them. It was the first time Sarah had met Juan in person, and she noted that Leilani clearly harbored fond feelings for him, even if she tried to play down her affection. The group stayed at the party until approximately 2:00 in the morning on October 31st, 2021. At that point, Leilani decided to accompany Juan to his residence in Fairfield, a drive of about 40 minutes. She left her car, her personal belongings, and her overnight bags at Sarah S.'s apartment, indicating her clear intention to return the following morning. As she departed, Sarah sent her a message urging her to be careful, a standard expression of care between close friends. Leilani replied warmly, assuring her friend that she would be safe. It was the final communication anyone would ever receive from her. When Sarah woke up at approximately 9:00 that morning, she noticed she had a missed call from Leilani. When she tried to return the call, there was no answer. Checking Leilani's shared location on her mobile phone, Sarah saw that the signal was initially on the freeway, suggesting Leilani was on her way back to Sacramento. However, as the minutes ticked by, subsequent location checks revealed that the phone was stationary in an area of East Fairfield, far from her intended destination. Soon after, Leilani's phone was turned off completely, preventing any further global positioning system pings. Sensing that something was deeply wrong, Sarah began reaching out to Leilani's friends and family, only to find that no one had heard from her, acting on her instinct that a sudden cessation of contact was entirely uncharacteristic of her friend. Sarah contacted the Fairfield Police Department to report her missing. The initial stages of a missing person investigation are often a race against time, requiring officers to systematically eliminate possibilities while gathering critical data. Officer Christopher Grimm of the Fairfield Police Department received the dispatch call at approximately 8:40 in the evening on October 30th, 2021. Recognizing the urgency, Officer Grimm began by checking area hospitals and detention facilities to see if Leilani had been admitted or detained under any medical or legal circumstances. When those checks yielded no results, and after receiving a worried call from Leilani's parents, the investigation was quickly elevated to the Investigations Bureau. Detectives recognized that a complete lack of financial transactions, outgoing calls, or digital activity from a young college student who was highly active on social media pointed strongly toward foul play. The first major break in the case came when Sarah managed to obtain the address of Juan's residence near Travis Air Force Base and provided it to the police. Officer Grimm and his partner immediately drove to the location, finding a dark, quiet house with no vehicles in the driveway. A careful visual sweep of the property through the windows revealed no obvious signs of a struggle or emergency inside, prompting detectives to coordinate with military security forces to locate Juan and his close friend, another enlisted airman named Damian Ponders. When detectives first interviewed Damian Ponders in his military dormitory, they observed immediate, striking behavioral cues that suggested deception. While Damian claimed he had no knowledge of Leilani's whereabouts, stating that he and Juan had left the party and returned home without her, his physical responses betrayed an overwhelming level of anxiety. Experienced investigators know that when interviewing a subject, physiological reactions are often far more revealing than spoken words. Damian was visibly fidgety. His palms were sweating profusely, And when a detective calmly stated that they needed to find Leilani even if she was deceased, Damien reacted with a heavy, visible swallow, a physiological reaction often associated vacapte, hat, extreme stress, and a guilty conscience. Recognizing these red flags, detectives continued to apply methodical, professional pressure. Shortly thereafter, Juan agreed to speak with investigators at the military base, offering a story that initially mirrored Damien's denial. However, the weight of a guilty conscience and the realization that law enforcement was closing in prompted Damien to return to the interview room to change his statement. In his second interview, Damien confessed that Leilani had indeed returned to the Fairfield home with them after the party. He explained that he had fallen asleep on the downstairs couch after consuming alcohol, while Juan and Leilani went upstairs. The following morning, Juan had woken him up in a hurry because they were late for duty. Damien went to work, but a few hours later, he received a frantic phone call from Juan requesting that he purchase specific cleaning supplies, including bleach and towels, and return to the house to assist in cleaning up a crime scene. When Juan, who was being held in an adjacent interview room, realized that his best friend was disclosing the truth, he decided to confess his own involvement. But he quickly pointed the finger of blame at his volatile ex-girlfriend, Jessica Quintanilla. Juan explained to detectives that Jessica had arrived at his residence unexpectedly that morning to retrieve some of her personal belongings. Upon entering the upstairs bedroom, she discovered Leilani asleep in the bed. Overcome by possessive rage, Jessica exited the home, retrieved a firearm from her vehicle, returned to the bedroom, and shot Leilani. Juan claimed that Jessica then threatened him, warning that if he did not help her cover up the crime, she and her brother, Marco Quintanilla, a previously convicted felon on parole, would inflict physical harm on him, Damien, and his family. Terrified of the repercussions, Juan agreed to assist Jessica in concealing the tragedy. Together they loaded the victim's body into a vehicle and drove south to a secluded, hilly area near Salinas, California, where they discarded her remains down a steep, brush-covered hillside. Juan further revealed that they had met with Marco Quintanilla, who reiterated the threats and accepted the firearm used in the crime for disposal. Desperate to erase any connection to the victim, the group had even purchased shovels, duct tape, lighter fluid, and pliers from a retail home improvement store, intending to return to the site to mutilate the remains and burn the evidence to prevent identification. Fortunately, the swift intervention of the Fairfield Police Department occurred before they could execute this horrific plan. Guided by Juan's directions, detectives traveled to the winding, secluded roads of Salinas, where they successfully recovered Leilani's remains, bringing a heartbreaking end to the search and beginning the arduous process of securing justice for her family. Back at the crime scene in Fairfield, forensic investigators utilized Blue Star, a highly sensitive chemical agent that detects latent blood trace residues by producing a bright blue chemiluminescent glow under darkened conditions. The forensic sweep revealed significant areas of blood residue in the bedroom and garage that had been subjected to cleanup efforts. Investigators also discovered a bullet fragment lodged within the bedroom wall, providing critical physical evidence of the trajectory of the firearm discharge. The subsequent arrest of Jessica Quintanilla and her brother Marco occurred in Pittsburgh, California, where officers spotted Jessica driving Juan's cherished vehicle. Marco arrived shortly after and was detained for a parole violation. During her initial interrogation on Halloween night, Jessica maintained a calm, almost indifferent demeanor, denying any knowledge of the crime or of Leilani's existence. However, detectives employed a tactical investigative technique by allowing Jessica and Marco to speak briefly under surveillance. Believing they were not being closely monitored, Jessica whispered a critical question to her brother, asking what he had disclosed to the police about the body. This single recorded whisper shattered her defense of total ignorance and proved she possessed direct knowledge of the victim's disposal. As the investigation deepened, digital forensics provided the final, undeniable links in the chain of evidence. Global positioning system data extracted from Jessica's mobile phone placed her exactly at the home improvement store where the cleanup and disposal tools were purchased, as well as at the remote hillside in Salinas, where Leilani's body was recovered. Furthermore, a search of Jessica's social media accounts revealed direct messages proving she was fully aware of Leilani's relationship with Juan, directly contradicting her statements to police and establishing a clear, documented motive of deep-seated jealousy and resentment. In October of 2024, 3 years after the tragic loss of Leilani, Jessica and Marco Quintanilla stood trial. Although Juan and Damien were granted immunity from prosecution in exchange for their truthful testimony regarding the cover-up, a difficult but necessary legal compromise that ultimately cost both men their military careers. The prosecution built an incredibly robust case. On the witness stand, Jessica attempted to alter her defense, claiming that the discharge of the firearm was an accident that occurred during a physical struggle with Juan on the right side of the bed. However, science would prove her wrong. The medical examiner's autopsy report conclusively showed that the bullet entered the left side of Leilani's head, a physical impossibility under the scenario Jessica described. This scientific refutation, combined with the overwhelming digital and circumstantial evidence, led the jury to find Jessica Quintanilla guilty of murder, resulting in a sentence of 25 years to life in prison. Marco Quintanilla was convicted as an accessory after the fact and sentenced to 4 years. Analyzing this tragic case reveals several profound lessons regarding human behavior, relationship dynamics, and the critical importance of community vigilance. One of the most prominent motives in this crime, and in many similar cases that occur with tragic frequency across the globe, is the destructive power of possessiveness and the dangerous illusion of control. When relationships are built on a foundation of insecurity, jealousy, and volatility, rather than mutual respect and open communication, they can quickly become breeding grounds for resentment. In many cases of interpersonal violence, perpetrators view their partners not as independent individuals with agency, but as possessions. When a third party enters the dynamic, even in a casual or innocent capacity, it can trigger a severe psychological crisis in the possessive individual, leading to an irrational, violent escalation. These cases occur with alarming frequency because society often overlooks or normalizes the early warning signs of toxic control. Behaviors such as obsessive checking of a partner's whereabouts, public confrontations, social media harassment, and explosive on-again, off-again cycles are sometimes dismissed as mere drama or passion. In reality, these are significant red flags that indicate a lack of emotional regulation and a propensity for abusive control. It is vital for communities, educators, and families to teach young adults the value of healthy boundaries, emotional intelligence, and the courage to walk away from volatile situations before they escalate into danger. For young people navigating the complex social world of modern relationships and peer groups, There are several vital safety lessons to be drawn from Leilani's story. First, it is crucial to recognize that a person's past behavior is often the best predictor of their future actions. When an individual exhibits public displays of aggression, such as the confrontation Jessica initiated at the automotive sideshow, it must be taken seriously as a sign of potential danger. Rather than dismissing such incidents, individuals should establish clear, firm boundaries and distance themselves from the conflict. Furthermore, the importance of maintaining strong open lines of communication, VKEP, Atehat friends, cannot be overstated. In this case, Sarah's immediate proactive response to Leilani's missed call and her sudden loss of contact was the single most critical factor in launching a rapid investigation. If Sarah had assumed that Leilani was simply busy or sleeping, days might have passed before the alarm was raised, giving the perpetrators ample time to destroy crucial evidence and permanently conceal the victim's location. This highlights the life-saving value of a supportive, alert network of friends who look out for one another and trust their instincts when something feels wrong. From an investigative standpoint, this case showcases the immense sophistication of modern forensic science and the methodical dedication of law enforcement. To catch perpetrators faster and solve complex cases with high efficiency, police forces rely on a combination of digital footprint analysis, behavioral observation, and advanced forensic technology. The rapid triangulation of mobile phone signals, the extraction of global positioning system location data, and the thorough analysis of social media communications have revolutionized modern criminal investigations. These digital breadcrumbs create an objective, undeniable timeline of events that can easily expose lies and contradictions. Additionally, the case underscores the value of behavioral analysis during the interview process. The sharp observation of physical symptoms of stress, such as Damien's sweating and swallowing, allowed detectives to immediately identify deception and pivot their interrogation strategy to elicit a confession. For law enforcement agencies worldwide, continuous training in behavioral profiling, micro-expressions, and the strategic use of passive surveillance, such as the recorded conversation between Jessica and Marco in the holding room, remains essential for breaking down complex criminal conspiracies. Ultimately, the resolution of this case stands as a testament to the victory of justice, the tireless efforts of the Fairfield Police Department, and the profound resilience of a grieving family. While no legal verdict can ever truly compensate for the loss of a vibrant, promising young life, the successful conviction of those responsible brings a sense of closure and accountability. To honor Leilani's legacy and her lifelong spirit of helping others, her family has dedicated themselves to establishing a foundation in her name, ensuring that her memory continues to shine brightly as a source of strength, awareness, and support for communities. Through education, vigilance, and a shared commitment to fostering healthy, respectful relationships, we can work to prevent such tragedies, ensuring that the light of love and justice always triumphs over darkness. The human experience is filled. They kept complex emotions, and among the most volatile of these are jealousy, possessiveness, and the desperate desire for control. When these intense emotions are left unchecked and combined with a complete disregard for human life, the consequences can be devastating. In the quiet city of Fairfield, California, located in the northern region of the San Francisco Bay Area, a tragic chain of events unfolded during the Halloween weekend of the year 2021. What began as a festive night of youth and celebration quickly dissolved into a dark conspiracy of violence, betrayal, and a clumsy, highly flawed cover-up. Through the dedicated efforts of local law enforcement, forensic science, and meticulous investigation, the truth was eventually brought to light, demonstrating that, no matter how hard perpetrators try to conceal their actions, justice inevitably prevails. To understand how this tragedy came to be, one must first look at the life of the young woman at the center of this story. Leilani Beacham was born on June 12 in the year 2002 in Long Beach, California. From her earliest childhood, she was known to her family and friends as tiny but mighty. Though she was small in physical stature, she possessed an extraordinarily vibrant personality, a warm heart, and an innate desire to help others. She was the oldest of 3 children and took her role as a big sister very seriously, often organizing movie nights, sharing treats, and helping her younger siblings with makeup and other activities. Her family, including her parents Violet and Onyx, remembered her as a compassionate person who constantly stood up for the underdog and sought to support those she felt were less fortunate. As she grew older, Leilani developed a strong passion for automobiles, a hobby inspired by her brother Anthony. She loved spending time working on cars, attending local car shows, and immersing herself in the local car culture. This passion eventually led her to participate in regional car events, which served as a lively social outlet where she could connect with other young enthusiasts. However, Leilani was also highly focused on her future. After high school, she moved to San Jose to attend college, choosing to pursue a promising career in real estate. Inspired by her parents, who worked as a broker and an agent, she displayed a remarkable drive to succeed in the family profession. Despite her busy academic schedule and career ambitions, she remained close to her friends and frequently returned to the Sacramento area to spend time with them. In late October of the year 2021, Leilani was eagerly preparing for the upcoming Halloween holiday. She planned to drive up from San Jose to stay with her close friend Sarah for a weekend of celebration. The 2 young women were excited to dress up, do their makeup, and enjoy a night out. On the evening of Friday, October 29th, they gathered at Sarah's apartment, where Leilani meticulously applied their makeup. Leilani dressed in a costume resembling a tactical law enforcement officer, while Sarah dressed in a skeleton-themed dress. They took numerous photographs together, capturing what should have been the beginning of a joyous and memorable weekend. Later that evening, the friends decided to attend a small gathering, often referred to as a kickback party. Shortly before they arrived, Leilani mentioned that an acquaintance named Juan Peralta was planning to meet up with them.
Juan
was a 20-year-old active-duty airman stationed at the nearby Travis Air Force Base. He and Leilani had been in an on-again, off-again relationship that had ended approximately 1 year prior, but they had recently reconnected on a casual, friendly basis. Sarah, who was meeting Juan for the first time that night, observed that Leilani still held deep affection for him, even if she tried to downplay her feelings. The group stayed at the gathering until approximately 2:00 in the morning. On Saturday, October 30th, at which point Leilani decided to call it a night. Instead of returning to Sarah's apartment, where her car and personal belongings remained, Leilani decided to accompany Juan to his residence in Fairfield, a drive of approximately 40 minutes. She assured Sarah that she would be dropped off back at the apartment in the morning. Before she left, Leilani sent a final message to her mother, Violet, who had advised her to be extremely careful. Leilani responded with an assurance that she would be safe, a message that would tragically be the last communication her family ever received from her. The following morning, Saturday, October 30th, Sarah awoke at approximately 9 o'clock and noticed she had a missed call from Leilani. When she tried to call back, there was no answer. Initially, Sarah checked Leilani's shared digital location and saw that the signal was active on a nearby freeway. Assuming her friend was on her way back to the apartment, Sarah remained calm. However, as 30 minutes passed and Leilani did not arrive, Sarah checked the location again and realized the phone was no longer moving toward Sacramento. Soon after, the phone signal went completely dark, and subsequent calls went straight to voicemail. Sensing that something was deeply wrong, Sarah began contacting all of Leilani's friends to see if anyone had heard from her. The response was unanimous, as no one had received any communication from Leilani since the previous night. Lacking the contact information for Leilani's family, at the time, Sarah made the crucial and proactive decision to contact the Fairfield Police Department to report her friend missing. Officer Christopher Grimm was dispatched to handle the call at approximately 8:40 in the evening. Upon receiving the report, Officer Grimm initiated standard missing persons protocols. He attempted to contact Leilani directly, but her phone remained powered off and could not be tracked via global positioning system pings. Recognizing that young adults occasionally lose contact or face minor emergencies, the officer began systematically checking local hospitals, medical facilities, and booking records to determine if Leilani had been injured, experienced a medical emergency, or been detained by law enforcement. Unfortunately, these inquiries yielded no results. The level of concern escalated significantly when Leilani's parents, Violet and Onyx, contacted the Fairfield Police Department. They had also been unable to reach their daughter, which was completely contrary to her established patterns of communication. Her digital presence, financial transactions, and cellular activity had completely ceased as of approximately 10 o'clock in the morning on October 30th. To experienced investigators, this sudden cessation of life patterns strongly suggested the involvement of foul play. The investigation began to focus heavily on identifying the individual Leilani was last seen with. Sarah provided the police with Juan's first name and eventually managed to obtain his home address, located on the east side of Fairfield near Travis Air Force Base. Armed with this vital information, police officers went to the residence. They found the home dark, with no vehicles in the driveway and no response at the front door. Officers inspected the perimeter, looking through the windows to check for any obvious signs of a struggle or medical emergency inside. But the interior appeared quiet and undisturbed. To locate Juan, the Fairfield Police Department contacted the security forces at Travis Air Force Base to reach his military supervisor. The following morning, military officials informed detectives that Juan was not on base and had not been seen for several days. However, they directed investigators to another active-duty airman named Damian Ponders, who was known to be Juan's closest friend. Investigators learned that the two airmen were incredibly close, to the point where Juan had Damian's name tattooed on his body. Detectives visited the military installation to interview Damian in his dormitory. Initially, Damian claimed to have no knowledge of Leilani's whereabouts. He stated that he had attended the party with Juan, after which they both returned to the Fairfield residence, and that he had gone to work the next morning while Leilani remained elsewhere. However, Experienced detectives are trained to observe physiological and behavioral cues during interviews. They noticed that Damien appeared highly anxious, fidgety, and terrified. His palms were visibly sweating, and when an investigator remarked that they desperately needed to find Leilani, even if she was no longer alive, Damien reacted with a highly visible, nervous swallow. Recognizing these classic signs of deception and extreme stress, the detectives allowed Damien to return to his quarters while they prepared their next steps. Shortly thereafter, Juan agreed to speak with investigators at the military base through the coordination of his commanding officer. Initially, Juan maintained a story similar to Damien's, claiming that he had seen Leilani at Motf the party, but had not brought her back to his home. However, while Juan was being interviewed, Damien returned to the military police station, visibly overwhelmed by guilt and anxiety, and requested to change his statement. In his second interview, Damien confessed to a shocking series of events. He admitted that Leilani had indeed returned to the Fairfield residence with him and Juan after the party. Damien, who had been heavily intoxicated, slept on a downstairs couch while Juan and Leilani went to an upstairs bedroom. The next morning, Juan rushed downstairs to wake Damien after they missed their alarms. Damien left immediately for his duties on the air base, believing Leilani was still asleep upstairs. A few hours later, Damien received a phone call from Juan, who made an unusual and highly suspicious request. Juan asked Damien to purchase specific cleaning supplies, including bleach, towels, and other sanitizing items, and bring them to the residence. When Damien arrived at the house with the items, he was confronted with the horrifying reality that Leilani had lost her life inside the home. Overwhelmed by a misguided sense of loyalty to his best friend, Damien agreed to assist Juan in concealing the evidence and cleaning the scene. While Damien was disclosing these details in one interview room, Juan, who was in an adjacent room, realized that the investigation had compromised their cover story. Recognizing that his attempts at deception had failed, Juan offered to tell the truth. He confirmed Damien's account of the cleanup, but insisted that he was not the person responsible for Leilani's death. Instead, he pointed the finger at his highly volatile ex-girlfriend, a 21-year-old woman named Jessica Quintanilla. The relationship between Juan and Jessica was described as extremely turbulent, marked by frequent breakups and intense arguments. Jessica, who worked as a dental assistant and a caregiver at a senior home while raising 2 young children, was reportedly going through a difficult divorce. According to Juan, he and Jessica had recently ended their relationship, prompting him to reconnect with Leilani. However, on the morning of Saturday, October 30th, Jessica arrived at Juan's residence unexpectedly to retrieve some of her personal property. When Jessica entered the home, she discovered Leilani asleep in the upstairs bed. This discovery triggered an intense wave of jealousy and anger. According to Juan's statement, Jessica uttered a derogatory remark, exited the room, and walked down to her vehicle to retrieve a firearm. She then returned to the bedroom, confronted Juan and Leilani, made a statement blaming Juan for the situation, and discharged the firearm, inflicting a fatal injury upon Leilani. Juan claimed that he was paralyzed by shock and fear. He asserted that Jessica immediately threatened him, warning that she would harm him, his family, and Damien if he did not cooperate in concealing the crime. Juan also noted that he took these threats extremely seriously because Jessica's brother, Marco Quintanilla, was a convicted felon who had recently been released on parole after serving time for a violent offense. Terrified of the potential consequences, Juan agreed to help Jessica dispose of the evidence. According to Juan, they wrapped Leilani's body, placed her into a vehicle, and drove south to a secluded hilly area near Salinas, California. There, they rolled her body down a steep, brush-covered hillside to hide her from view. After returning north, they contacted Jessica's brother, Marco. Upon learning of the situation, Marco allegedly threatened Juan, reinforcing that if his sister faced legal consequences, Juan would as well. To further ensure the body could not be identified, the conspirators visited a home improvement store where they purchased shovels, duct tape, lighter fluid, and hand tools. Juan claimed that Jessica proposed a horrific plan to return to the disposal site, use pliers to remove Leilani's teeth, and use lighter fluid to incinerate her remains, thereby destroying any dental or physical evidence that could link the body to her identity. Fortunately, the swift action of the Fairfield Police Department prevented them from carrying out this disturbing plan. Juan offered to lead detectives directly to the location where Leilani's body had been left. He accompanied officers in a patrol vehicle to a secluded, winding road with poor cellular reception in the Salinas area. There, approximately 30 yards off the roadway in a steep valley overgrown with thick brush, investigators located Leilani's remains. The recovery of her body allowed the medical examiner to begin a thorough autopsy, while detectives had the painful duty of informing her waiting parents that their beloved daughter had been found deceased. Meanwhile, forensic investigators executed a search warrant at Juan's Fairfield residence. To identify trace evidence that had survived the intensive cleaning process, forensic specialists utilized Blue Star, a highly sensitive chemical agent that luminesces when it comes into contact with blood, even after it has been washed away with bleach. The application of the chemical revealed glowing blue areas in the master bedroom and the garage, clearly mapping the path of the crime. Additionally, forensic investigators discovered a projectile strike on one of the bedroom walls and successfully recovered a bullet fragment, which provided critical physical evidence to support Juan's description of the shooting. As the physical evidence began to accumulate, police launched a search for Jessica Quintanilla. She was eventually spotted in Pittsburgh, California, driving Juan's highly prized customized vehicle, which he frequently used in car shows. Police conducted a high-risk traffic stop and arrested Jessica without incident. Shortly after her arrest, her brother, Marco, arrived at the scene in another vehicle and was also taken into custody for a parole violation. During her interrogation on Halloween night, Jessica maintained an air of complete indifference and annoyance. She denied any knowledge of the crime, claiming she had spent the weekend attending various holiday parties. She insisted that she and Juan were in a happy, stable relationship and that she was entirely unaware of Leilani's existence. However, during a brief moment when Jessica and Marco were permitted to communicate, unaware that their conversation was being monitored, Jessica was overheard whispering a highly incriminating question to her brother, asking him what he had disclosed to the police regarding the location of the body. This slip-up, combined with Marco's desire to protect his parole status, led to further cooperation from the family. Marco admitted to meeting Juan for the first time on the morning of the crime and learning about the incident. He subsequently coordinated with his girlfriend to surrender a firearm to the police, though subsequent forensic analysis determined that this specific weapon was not the one used in the commission of the crime. The actual murder weapon was never recovered. Despite the lack of a murder weapon, prosecutors built a powerful circumstantial case against Jessica Quintanilla. Digital forensics played a pivotal role in dismantling her defense. Investigators obtained a search warrant for Jessica's electronic devices and social media accounts. While Jessica had claimed she did not know about Leilani's relationship with Juan, her Instagram direct messages revealed the exact opposite. She had sent messages proving she was fully aware of Leilani and had even detailed a hostile confrontation that occurred at a car sideshow in Sacramento a week prior to the murder. During that previous incident, Jessica had reportedly approached Juan's car, opened the door, and attempted to initiate a physical fight with Leilani, demonstrating a clear history of targeted jealousy and aggression. Furthermore, cellular data analysis and global positioning system records from Jessica's phone placed her directly at the home improvement store on the day of the crime, matching the surveillance footage that showed her purchasing shovels and tools alongside Juan. The cellular data also tracked her phone, traveling south to the exact secluded coordinates in Salinas, where Leilani's body was recovered, completely disproving her alibi. The trial of Jessica and Marco Quintanilla commenced on October 15th in the year 2024, nearly 3 years after the tragic loss of Leilani. Juan and Damien were granted immunity from prosecution for their roles in the cover-up in exchange for their truthful testimony as witnesses for the state. Although they avoided criminal convictions, both men faced significant accountability, as they were dishonorably discharged from the United States Air Force and had their military careers permanently ruined. During the 5-week trial, the prosecution presented a seamless narrative of jealousy, rage, and an obsession with control. They argued that Jessica had snapped upon finding Leilani in Juan's bedroom and had taken deliberate, violent action to assert control over a situation she could not dominate. On November 5th, Jessica took the stand in her own defense, presenting a brand new version of events. She claimed that Leilani's death was the result of an accidental discharge of the firearm during a physical struggle with Juan on the right side of the bed. However, this fabricated defense was swiftly dismantled by the objective physical findings of the medical examiner. The coroner testified that the projectile entered the left side of Leilani's head, a trajectory that was physically impossible under the scenario described by Jessica. The jury recognized this testimony as a desperate lie and saw through her complete lack of remorse throughout the proceedings. On November 19th in the year 2024, the jury returned a verdict of guilty. Jessica Quintanilla was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Marco Quintanilla was convicted of acting as an accessory after the fact and sentenced to 4 years. For Leilani's family, the verdict brought a sense of legal justice, though they emphasized that no amount of prison time could ever truly compensate for the profound loss of their daughter and sister. To honor her memory and her lifelong passion for helping others, her family established a charitable foundation in her name, ensuring that her legacy of kindness and strength would continue to impact the community. This tragic case provides a profound opportunity to analyze the underlying motives that drive such extreme criminal acts and the reasons why these types of relationships can escalate so rapidly. The primary motive in this crime was an extreme, pathological sense of jealousy and possessiveness. In many relationships marked by volatility, one partner may view the other not as an independent individual with free agency, but as a personal possession. When that perceived possession interacts with a former partner, it can trigger an intense, irrational response. Such cases occur with tragic frequency because of the modern challenges associated with communication, social media, and interpersonal boundaries. In an era where digital connectivity allows individuals to constantly monitor the lives, locations, and social interactions of others, feelings of insecurity and resentment can be amplified. Instead of addressing these insecurities through healthy communication or choosing to walk away from a toxic dynamic, some individuals allow their anger to fester, leading to sudden and explosive acts of violence. The ease of access to firearms further escalates these emotional confrontations from verbal disputes into fatal tragedies. When analyzing the investigative process, it is clear that the police relied on several crucial details and clues to successfully track down the perpetrators and secure a conviction. The first and most critical element was the rapid response and persistence of Leilani's friend, Sarah. By recognizing the immediate anomaly in Leilani's communication patterns and monitoring her digital location before her phone went dark, Sarah provided law enforcement with a highly accurate timeline and a specific geographic starting point. This underscores the vital importance of close friendships and community vigilance in missing persons cases. The second key factor was the sophisticated utilization of forensic technology. While the perpetrators went to extreme lengths to clean the crime scene using heavy chemical disinfectants, they severely underestimated the capabilities of modern forensic science. The application of Blue Star demonstrated that physical evidence of a violent act cannot be easily erased. The detection of microscopic blood spatters and the recovery of a tiny bullet fragment embedded in a bedroom wall provided undeniable proof of what had occurred within the home, completely contradicting the initial denials of the occupants. The third pillar of the investigation was digital and cellular forensics. In the modern digital age, every individual leaves a virtual footprint. By securing search warrants for the suspect's cellular devices, investigators were able to map their precise movements through historical cell site location information and global positioning system data. This technology allowed detectives to reconstruct the route taken by the conspirators, placing them at the home improvement store and the remote disposal site in Salinas at the exact times the crime and cover-up were taking place. Furthermore, social media archives provided the necessary context to establish premeditated hostility and motive, proving that Jessica was fully aware of Leilani and had previously expressed violent intentions toward her. There is a distinct, mild irony in analyzing the sophistication of the criminals in this case. While they attempted to execute a highly complex cover-up, their methods were remarkably amateurish and plagued by logical loopholes. They believed that purchasing basic cleaning supplies and household tools from a highly monitored retail store like Home Depot would suffice to conceal a major crime. They operated under the delusion that they could easily evade the combined analytical power of local police, military investigators, and digital forensic experts. Their attempts to threaten and coerce accomplices into silence quickly fell apart under the pressure of basic police interrogation tactics. The moment Damien and Juan were presented with the reality of their situation, their allegiance to the cover-up dissolved, highlighting the fundamental truth that criminal conspiracies built on fear and deception are inherently unstable and destined to collapse. From this tragic loss of life, several profound life lessons can be drawn to prevent similar occurrences in the future. First, It is essential for young adults to recognize the early warning signs of toxic and volatile relationships. A pattern of constant breaking up and reuniting, coupled with extreme jealousy, stalking behaviors, and attempts to control one's social circle, are clear red flags that should never be ignored. Choosing to permanently sever ties. Vekapitahat individuals who exhibit these behaviors is not a sign of weakness, but a vital measure of self-preservation. Second, the community must foster an environment where individuals feel safe reporting threats and harassment. Leilani had experienced a hostile confrontation with Jessica a week prior to her death, yet this incident did not lead to protective legal measures or intervention. Taking such confrontations seriously and seeking the assistance of law enforcement or obtaining protective orders can act as a crucial barrier against escalating violence. Additionally, families and educational institutions must continue to emphasize the value of emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and the importance of walking away from volatile situations rather than engaging in confrontations. To assist law enforcement agencies in resolving such cases even faster in the future, several procedural experiences can be shared. First, immediate and seamless cooperation between municipal police departments and military authorities is paramount. Because the primary suspects in this case were active-duty military personnel residing near a major Air Force base, the rapid coordination between the Fairfield Police Department and military security forces allowed investigators to quickly locate and interview key witnesses before they could further coordinate their alibis. Second, the integration of real-time digital tracking and public surveillance cameras is an invaluable tool for modern investigators. By rapidly accessing highway license plate readers and commercial security footage, police can track the movement of suspect vehicles in real time, potentially locating victims much sooner. Finally, training investigators in advanced behavioral analysis and cognitive interviewing techniques remains one of the most effective methods for breaking through deceptive statements, as demonstrated by the interview with Damian Ponders. A detective's ability to read subtle physiological cues, such as a nervous swallow or sweating palms, can instantly turn a cold missing persons lead into a breakthrough confession. Ultimately, the resolution of this case stands as a powerful testament to the triumph of justice, the dedication of law enforcement, and the enduring power of truth. While nothing can replace the vibrant and compassionate life of Leilani Beacham, the meticulous efforts of those who investigated her disappearance ensured that those responsible were held fully accountable under the law. By studying these events, analyzing the psychological triggers of the perpetrators, and honoring the memory of the victim, society can work toward a safer, more empathetic future where such senseless tragedies are prevented and the forces of good continue to prevail over darkness.